Hey, everybody. Welcome to Some Guys Talking. We're, rocking and rolling. A couple minutes late. Hope you're enjoying yourselves and enjoying your day. I'm, of course, Brian Holler, and this other fella over here is.
Hi, all. I'm Aaron Washington. I hope everyone is having a fantastic morning so far. How are you?
Yes. Hope you're well. Well, we were talking about very important things right as we led into the going live. So we're going to continue our conversation. It's about who's favorite X-Men. And when I said Nightcrawler, the reason I said Nightcrawler is because we had a little technical, fun little glitch as Aaron walked in. There was like no one there, and then it blipped, and all of a sudden he was in the chair. It was just because there was a little lag for a second there, just good timing of the lag. But it made me think of Nightcrawler, and then of course Aaron, of course, is like, "That's like my favorite X-Man," and I went, "Of course it is, of course it is, right?" But then he started getting into who else's was. So now you're all caught up. Aaron, keep going
Well,
about
everyone loves
who your other
Wolverine.
favorites were. You were like, so I like Nightcrawler, and then you were saying something about Colossus, I think. Go ahead.
Everyone loves Wolverine, but Colossus was my other favorite. So yeah.
Well, those two together make the fastball special. So pretty cool stuff there when Colossus takes Wolverine and like throws him at stuff. Super awesome.
I think there's a lag in the camera because I just moved and shifted in just a second. So yeah.
That was the same kind of thing that happened earlier. Mine is I'm very predictable. It's Wolverine. I'm a big fan of him. If you count Deadpool as a X-Man, then I really like him as well. I am a fan of Colossus though. When I was younger, that's who I always used to, sort of vibe with too. Everybody thinks Cyclops is corny, but ultimately, stuffy leader, right? You sort of need him. Jean Grey, sort of vanilla that way too, but super powerful though.
Scott was
so
always a dick for Wolverine. Scott was always the nerd. He was always a jerk to Wolverine. So I was like, whatever,
sure.
dude.
Right. Anyhow, have you been watching the animated versions that are out now, the new ones? The series? So on Disney Plus.
I don't see. I don't watch too much entertainment or movies or whatever. I'm kind of obsessed with the chaos that is going on in the world, and I need to as we whistle past the graveyard. So I actually do need to watch more things with levity in it that are more fantasy. So I'm gonna start. What should I start watching?
Interesting. Well, you basically described the Marvel universe, so hop on in at whatever place you'd like to. If you Iron Man is a good place to start. The first Iron Man, of the Avengers movies.
After Infinity, I just kind of that was just the best. That
it was pretty dope, wasn't it?
And then I'm like, I'm good.
They certainly haven't topped Infinity War or Endgame since, but I'm hoping this next run, maybe they will. People are pretty excited about Deadpool and Wolverine. That could be.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm going to see that. I will see that. Absolutely.
My hope is that movie sort of ushers in sort of this next phase that they're heading towards, where you'll see a lot more X-Men, Fantastic Four, Spider-Man. I mean, those were my favorites growing up. Was basically Spider-Man and Wolverine. Like that was who I liked growing up.
I'm going to see the Deadpool. If anyone knows me, they know that I have a soft spot and affinity for Ryan Reynolds. So
sure, I'll be there. Well, I like Deadpool a lot too, so I should also include him in that as well. He's a little newer of a character compared to the other two, but ultimately, yeah, he's a big and that's a perfect cast. At least I would think so.
Things that people like comic books care about. Oh, it's my brother calling. I can't pick up the phone right now.
Nope. So yeah. Oh, anyways, so yes, that's our X-Men conversation for today's episode. I don't know how to segue towards what we wanted to talk about today, but anyhow, Some Guys Talking. We are very unpredictable. We try to be on every Wednesday at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern. Most weeks we do it. So, but we go live here on, LinkedIn and some other platforms as well. What's the point of our show? Just guys talking about different things about how to help each other. Not really just guy stuff, just how everybody can maybe tap into, elements of, positivity, self-help, sometimes plant medicine, different wellness techniques and, other aspects of talking about, say, emotions, things like that, to
being more mindful,
and to acquire better understanding. And we just hope that conversations like this seem normal and just whatever, and that you can tap into them. And one of the things that we were talking about earlier that we're going to talk about today is, and I think we've touched on before in past
Several
episodes.
times.
Yes, and it's a bigger theme of our show now that I think about it. You're right. Is the sort of the concept of asking for help, right? In whatever ways that is, right? Some people have difficulty doing it in any way, shape, or form. Some folks have an easier time doing it in like a professional capacity, and then when it comes to personal stuff, it's very, very difficult. That's a very common one, I think. Um, you know, but anyways, in general, a lot of people have conflicting issues with it. On both sides, like you can have people who also go the other way and ask for it too much, or rely on too many, doing that so much that they don't seem like they're self-sufficient. So that's not good either. But truthfully, in my opinion, I think certainly with people I know, the struggle is more on the other side of it, resisting the ask for help.
Yes.
That's what I think more people are sort of plagued with. What do you think, Aaron?
Well, bringing our private conversation to public. No, I am. As we were talking about that, I personally need to recognize that I need to ask for or see. Here's the thing. At part of our conversation, I will be the first one to offer anyone a hand. You need anything, you call me. I got you. I got you all day. Yeah. Would I pick up that phone to? No.
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Because it's like I got it handled. I'll take care of it, which is not smart. So basically that's what our discussion was. It's not smart to do that. It's easier to say I got it, but it's not beneficial to the process in life and makes it harder.
Yes, and worse than that is you're inevitably going to be disappointed when you try to let go, at least at some point, or like when you're like, okay, no, I need you need to ask for help. Then you ask for it, and the person, the thing, or whatever you're getting the help from disappoints you, right? Or doesn't do what you want, or doesn't do it in the way you would like, which is a whole nother avenue of analysis that we can go down.
It's easy to just do it yourself. Why?
Right, and so people obviously are going to come to this conclusion because you're not going to swing a hit home run every single time. You're not going to. Every time you ask for help, it's not going to work out the exact way that you want to and be like, yay, right? So, but it can a lot of times. And then on top of that, you have to be willing to do it, especially when things are really, really tough for you. That's really when it's like most important to do so. It's one thing you're in this gray area nebulous of like, oh, I think I should be able to handle this, or, it's not really killing me, but, maybe I could get help. Like, that's fine. Like those happen on a lot of levels. But when it's bad, right? When that there's there's a point where that either it's not good for you to continue to not ask for help on this or to not go pursue it aggressively yourself, right? And that's when you shouldn't do it, right? That's when you should actually get over yourself and ask for help,
Yeah.
And I guess I would just want to destigmatize any sort of weirdness around that, right? Like if people ask me for help, I'm quick to provide it too.
All day.
And most people I know that I care about or that I even deal with, or hang out with, I think are pretty much the same way. And I think a whole ton of them have problems asking for help themselves. When it comes to certain.
It's probably a human thing, though. It's probably just.
Yes.
Now, is it a human thing because you don't want to appear vulnerable? Is it a human thing that you want to be private? Like, I'm wondering what is.
I think it all factors in, right?
For me, I figure out I want to do things a certain way. So for me, I just say it's easier if I do it. Like if I let someone else if I go to someone else for help and they don't do what they're supposed to, I'm just in the same spot. So why don't I just do it?
Well, let me pose this to you though. What if they didn't do it your way, but the job still got done and it was done in a good enough time that didn't really interfere? So wouldn't you be just, I guess that's fine. That works.
100%.
Right? So then,
which means you have to give people the opportunity and the chance to do it.
Do not micromanage, right? Even in your own head, right? So exactly, just because they wouldn't do it your way, if it seems to be works for them, getting the job done, we're getting to the destination, good. Let it rip. I don't know. I think it's just more of, and like I was saying, I was very fortunate that I had a father who was self-aware enough to be like, yeah, guys are like, he would say guys are tough at this. I mean, I think everybody has a problem with this, but anyways, he was like, this is an issue for people. try not to be this way. You will be instinctively want to not ask for help. Try to, get over that and be aware enough of yourself, but don't also ever be like reliable on somebody or something else above like what you can do for yourself.
Right.
So it was always that balance that you're talking about, which I suspect is the same for everybody. What is that balance? What am I comfortable giving up in terms of like, having that, but also I need to have control over my own life,
Right.
and I should be able to do whatever I don't know, am compelled to do with myself. Man, woman, old, young, that doesn't matter. Should be able to be sort of able to, like, I guess that's where you get into some of the sort of things that people think of when they are asking for help, like that level of vulnerability or need is super uncomfortable because people, I think it's a slippery slope to like, oh my gosh, everybody's going to think I'm so, needy, and I'm so, and then I'm just whining and complaining. And this is just something that people tell themselves. Nobody thinks that. Because you're never, Aaron, you're not going to come to me and ask for like, if you're going to come out of your way to ask me for help, it's probably about something pretty serious or something that you really have a lot of care or passion for.
If I'm asking for help,
correct.
Yeah, it's serious.
That's right. But I suspect that's the
I've
case.
tried 10 ways. I can't do it myself. So, all right, I need some help.
So what I'm saying is, I think most people have the issues that we're talking about here. So when anybody does ask me for help, I feel like it's a big deal.
Right.
Right. And so that's why I think most people that I know, present company included, be apt to give it quickly. Right. So why do we have the hard time making the leap of like, oh, well, since I would give it, then I should be cool because everybody else can be that way too. And most people are, right? How many times have you been helped by a stranger? I've been helped by many strangers in my life. I have. I've also given help to many strangers in my life for various things. Nothing too crazy. I wasn't lifting up cars and rescuing babies or anything.
Babies?
No, like
I got you, baby, man. Stand back.
Everything from, I don't know, holding the door open or grabbing the, somebody's luggage when they're having trouble having it, just little things like that, right? They shouldn't have to ask for help for that. You can tell people are struggling. If you have the ability to assist, as long as you're not, crowding on anybody's space or doing anything wonky. But, my point is like, if you really examine it from an outward, space, you shouldn't have any issues asking for help if you really need it.
You just sparked something in my head, totally random. One of the greatest parts about a lot of the chaos that we currently live in the world is that when you do go out and you just like, I enjoy meeting people because when I talk to people and it's like people, I don't say this the nicest way possible. So many people are such dicks. So when you're nice to someone and just connect on a human level, it like they're so appreciative and it's just so enjoyable. So that's kind of like one of the pluses of everything being like hyper tense and everything that's going on in society. When you approach normal people as a normal person, it's pretty awesome. And they're appreciative. And it's nice to have that interaction when you kind of think of so much kind of chaos and just everything else going on in the world. So that's just a random thing.
I agree. I think that I saw something on our initial post that looks silly as can be, so I have to change it. But I am kind of weirdly watching us as I do this at the same time. Anyways, I'm good though. I do think that I just think looking at it that way, Aaron, is important because asking for help is honestly such a key thing that you need. I mean, honestly, let's bring it to the professional side. You always think about professionally, you've got to ask for help. It's not really done in that way, really, because you're like, oh, well, this is this person's responsibility. Mm-hmm. So I'm not really asking for help. I'm just developing a process. And basically, you're acknowledging when you do your part. And we have mechanisms by which we, acknowledge that with each other. But we also know that without each other, this thing doesn't work.
Right.
So sometimes when one of us is maybe not doing it at the rate we need, or, or we're not understanding why somebody does it this way and this way, we're asking for help to understand, right? Because we're saying like, hey, how can we do this better? And like, what's going on here? And, hey, let's look at all the different pieces that we have to examine here, right? And so, that's an element of asking for help that I think we're a lot more comfortable with, right? Because we're paid to be there, right? Or, hey, this is part of our responsibilities of the job. But truly, you're asking for help. And a lot of times you are. right? Maybe things aren't going the way you need them to go. So you're having a conversation with the two people who are, sort of most responsible with you for the campaign, the process, the development, the thing you're not hitting the goal for, whatever it might be. And you're like, hey, we need to figure out how to do this. Truthfully, you're asking each other for help.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Now it's not necessarily posed that way. Sometimes it is. Like, I really need your help on this, folks. Like, you know what I mean? Like that does happen. Hey, we got to really band together and figure this out, right? That's asking for help. So what do you think about that juxtaposition? Do you think it's more, do you think people have an easier time basically asking for help in a professional situation versus personal? Seems like that's the case.
Yes. Oh, versus so being able to ask for help from those professionally is easier than personal. Yes. I would agree with that statement if that was the question that you asked. Yes, I would agree with that. Because I think in the work environment, probably you're dealing with, tasks and details. So it's easier to say, hey, I got a question. How about X, Y, and Z? It's a totally different thing with, those around you and just your family, your partner, whether it's easy to, to ask for help and be vulnerable. I mean, that's one of the things where it's easier to be, vulnerable, if you call it that, at work, if you're just asking for help, with the details. Now it's a totally different thing with your spouse or your friends to say, hey, when X, Y, and Z happened, I felt this way, or I'm feeling like this, because a lot of the times, and it's funny, and that's where, and I think about it, it's also about perspective, because it's what is it? It's not, it's just as much about how you say something as what you're saying. You have to learn how to, to be able to open up and talk to people. Like it's hard to be vulnerable, but it's hard. Like it's a lot to be able to. So I would agree with that. It is more difficult to be, more open, because you're dealing with human emotions, where work is just work. And I mean, and not really, but work is mostly work and tasks and things like that. As far as your family, you're dealing with like personal emotional stuff and things, and sometimes it's like you have to open up about, like, the reason why you are a certain way is because of an experience in the past, which allows, like, you have to let people know what's going on. So yeah, it's a lot, because you're dealing with personal emotions and things that affect you more. So I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and I think, well, listening to you, I also think there's a bigger element there. It's more when you're asking for help with something that's more emotional, or maybe emotional for you, even if it is something functional, then those are tough sometimes, right? Versus just task oriented, like, hey Aaron, can you hand me that, whatever, or what I'm saying, oh, hey, can you go grab the food, it's at the thing, or what I mean, like that's asking for help technically, but it's not hard to do, because it's kind of expected, right? Hey Aaron, can you get the door, you're closer, right? So like, what I mean, like that sort of a thing. Whereas if it's, hey Aaron, I have to talk to you about my behavior lately, or something, or like some event that happened that really that you need to know about, that I'm not comfortable sharing because I maybe looked bad or did something wrong, or that sort of a thing, or embarrassed by my behavior or whatever it might be. Those are certainly more difficult. So when we're asking for help, then I think that's what, like, when people are saying I have difficulty asking for help, that's what I think of. Is I don't think they have a hard time asking me to pass the salt. I think that they have a hard time talking about their emotions, or things that are going wrong in their life where they might need support, or you're confused about something that's really emotionally driven, and so you feel you don't want to burden other people or people that you care about with your problems, because everybody's got their own shit, of course, and these are all logical reasons to not do so. But I would say that if you're in that spot where you're thinking those things, that's when you probably need to ask for help.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting you say that. And what made me think of that is that, so, and one of the things is just letting people know kind of what's going on. Now, I'm also a person, it's like, yeah, it's my business. I don't need to necessarily let people know. I've mentioned, and you and I were talking about it, but I've mentioned, watching, a parent get older and how hard it is. And it's one of those things where, for me, like, Thank you. Now I am my persona, and I don't know. One of the things that is important to me is to encourage others. And I have found it in the last week or so. I mean, I'm able to encourage others, but when you're going through something and it's just, to be perfectly honest with you, like at times it's just hard to encourage, and it's hard to get on social media, and it's hard to, just because you're thinking about just the reality of your situation, and just like,
Yeah,
again, parents getting old, it fucking sucks. So with that, it's like, so probably the last week or so, or couple weeks, it has been difficult to get on social media to encourage other people, because honestly, it's like at times I don't feel like, I don't have the encouragement in me, but I also don't want to be that guy that's like, oh, I need help. It's like, nah, that ain't me. That's
right.
not me. So for me, it's easier to just be like, you know what, I need to just take a little break. I just don't have it in me to build up. So it's interesting. But yeah, that is where and that's where you have to kind of be self-aware. And I'm glad I have the best therapist in the world, and I had therapy this morning, and it allows me to see things, that shortcomings in myself and things, but
Yeah.
allows me to understand myself better. But yeah.
Well, it's always good to have an unbiased third party who can, knowledgeably and,
Mhm.
with your care in mind, look at your situations and provide, sound advice, and guidance. I mean, you know,
And the
that's a
best
smart
part
thing
is
to
that
do.
we've been together for like 6 years, so I can't bullshit him. I
Right.
can't. He knows me.
Of course.
He knows me.
Sure. Of
He's like,
course.
yeah, okay. It's
Yeah.
like,
Especially now, not only
mhm,
and he's trained to, know understand these different personality types
mhm,
and, and
mhm.
how, and then to know you and how that, happens. Anyways, you get it. But like, so yeah, those are good things. I mean, that's the ultimate, I think, ask for help. It's interesting that like, I not say ultimate, but that's a strong ask for help that I think people take a it's hard for people to make that initial leap to do sometimes, but
Yeah.
probably very worthwhile as you're explaining. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's it's a lot to allow, to let people know your emotions and see that stuff.
yes,
You know, it's a lot.
it is.
Well, and also when you're in new ground and territory that you've never been in before, so it's also like, huh, I don't know how to navigate this, but I'm gonna figure it out.
Right.
So yes, ask for help. That's what people need to do. Our
Well, that's
early
the key.
CTA, ask for help.
Yes, the
And I
early
get, and
CTAs.
actually, you know what? How about adding one to that, and just people need to know what's going on. Well, for other people, because I ain't telling people what's going on, but
Sure.
people should know what's going on. You should share.
It's funny you say that because we've got one of these fancy banners that basically says that right there. So you
Yeah,
know, yeah,
I swear.
let people know what's going on when you get a chance. Um, and that's part of asking for help too, I suppose, is talking about what's going on and realizing that through people you trust that you like maybe need some assistance, perhaps, or some guidance, or at the very least you have friends who want to look out for you or people who love you in your life in their life, so they're going to be compelled to want to help you as long as you're talking about what's going on. So maybe that's another way to get there, right? If you have
And
a
let
difficulty going for the straight ask, you can just talk about what's happening.
and let me just kind of like, well, I call attention to one of your earlier points, is that, and this is the thing, you need to be able to accept the help how it is given. It may not be how you would do it, but you know,
Right. Yeah.
it's still, you know,
Yes. Don't.
it may not be what you envision, but that's how,
Yes.
yeah.
There's a lot of cliches that come to mind about this, but ultimately, yes, you're right. If somebody is doing you the favor, unless it's super counterproductive or like way out of bounds, maybe give them some space to cook, as the kids say, to do what they
Kids,
got to do.
as the kids say.
Yeah. Yes. And
I'm a,
so
I'm a boomer, so I don't know what the kids say, and I
I have
and I
no
can't.
idea if the kids say that, to be honest, either. I just, and I think asking for help is also, it's interesting because I don't know. I keep going back to this whole like professional part of it because that's a lot of reasons why things don't progress either. Is it's not really about asking for help, but it's well, it sort of is. Like, I mean, ultimately partnerships and strategic ones especially are, designed to, help grow the businesses involved, right? Or the people involved with the partnership, right? Or the entities, I should say, right? So why don't they work sometimes, right? Well, a lot of times it's functional stuff, right? The money couldn't match up, or the responsibilities felt undifferent. Too many, somebody
Mm-hmm.
thought they were giving too much. These are all very logical reasons why, this doesn't happen. Maybe the top brass of all the organizations can, see eye to eye on the, bottom line, right? That happens, But another reason it happens is because of ego and unwillingness to
Mm.
accept that you would need the help. And that's a one that on plagues companies and people on a lot of levels professionally,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I know in my experience, I can only talk from my own experience, but in my experience, loosening up in that way, or just trusting that and it's not even asking for help, just being open, willing to pivot, be agile, to listen to an opportunity and explore if they were the right person and set up, or, if there is a good alignment there, why wouldn't we try to help each other grow? Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's that can be part of this too, is my point. Those can, that, that difficulty that people have asking for help can leak into other things, or it
Yeah.
can, it can be, it can extend to like your professional life, or even maybe elements of your spirituality, or like other things like that, right? um and so I think I don't know, I mean, if I'm not saying it's an indicator that you are all those things if you have an issue asking for help, but I am saying that um I bet you if we looked at the kind of people who are having a hard time maybe settling in a what seems to be a layup of a partnership or an M&A situation, if you dig through all the stuff, I bet you come to some folks who have a hard time asking for help or
Well,
being
I mean,
willing to give it.
it almost sounds like you're talking about an individual that like not that won't ask for help because of like they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to ask for help because they don't think that anyone can help them because they got it all figured out. Now
And that's what I'm
that's a
saying is
whole other thing that
right,
you're completely, if that's what you think, no
right,
one else can help me. I got all the answers. Good luck, homeboy. That's
right.
gonna work out great for you.
And that's what I'm saying is there's that too, right?
Yeah,
Which
no,
is
I haven't even
even
thought
less,
about that. The
you know,
ignorance side of just like, no, I got this.
which
Continue.
you run into, right?
Yeah,
Oh, I can do that. And then they don't or can't.
that's a good point. That's a good point. I got it figured
Which is
out, and
another
none of
reason
you
that
can help me.
feeds the
So,
good, a decent thinking person probably about like, that's why I don't ask for help. I might get swindled. I might get run into by somebody who's going to actually not have my best interest in mind. Right.
and think about how dangerous that is for a business. If the person in charge is like, "Nah, I got this. I know everything. No one else knows more than me." Have at it, Hoss. Not going to work out well.
The messed up thing is like a nice number of organizations that have actually done decent things have been run by people like that. Not all of them, and I don't think that happens as much anymore. I think it's much tougher to do that today.
Mm-hmm.
But there were examples of that, which is
Mm-hmm.
why I think there was a nice thread of people who think it's that way. They still exist, as a matter of fact. I would venture to say the tide is turning in that way, but certainly not alone. I mean, I've run into certainly people who still fit that bill. That's for damn sure. And that implement, sort of those sort of like there's a lot of things that come with that mindset too that are not very pleasant. You know,
I don't
bullying
want to
and
ask for help because I don't want to be a dick. Not just, I don't want to. Sorry, I don't want to ask for help because I don't want to be a pain in the ass. It's not I don't want to ask for help because I'm a dick, and I'm just like,
right. But I
I
don't want
got.
to ask for help because I'm a dick, right? There is that. So like that's what I'm saying is like there's all sorts of reasons why. And again, I feel like that's why it's important to try to maybe be vulnerable. You don't want to be like you don't want to be taken the wrong way, right? Oh, he doesn't need help. He act like he doesn't need help, right?
Because then those around you will be like, all right, good luck, dumbass.
Right.
And they're
That's
just gonna walk.
same
They're
as
gonna
you
sit
just said
down and
about,
watch the stuff.
ignorant business person, right? Like they could do that about you, not you personally, just in general, you.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't know, the irony is kind of interesting, or Like the juxtaposition of that, I think is interesting because it is still people having trouble asking for help. One, it's just more of us can empathize with because it's an element we all struggle with, I think, to a degree. And then the other one is like, oh shit, I have run into that a bunch of times. And yeah, those are not the most fun people to be around. Right.
So let me say this because and this is more talking to myself. I should fix my brain that the same way that I care about other people and want to help them, maybe there are other people out there that feel the same way I do, and it's not a burden.
That's what I'm saying. Is most people, I think, if they struggle with this, struggle like you do with it, right? So why wouldn't we just go, well, if the percentages are with me, then I shouldn't really trip about asking for people for help when I need it. Because most people are going to at least try their best, which is all I could really ask for. But most people are going to exceed expectations, to be honest, especially because I'm going to have a trust with the person I ask for help. So I'm not just going willy nilly to anybody, unless you have to. But ultimately, most of the time we're asking somebody we have at least some familiarity with, which is why it's also hard to do. Because this is maybe somebody you're just a colleague with, or you're just really good friends with. So you're not trying to rock that boat or bring it all heavy because you have a great relationship and it's fun. You like to, do what you do or whatever. But anybody who really loves you as a friend, has probably seen you or at least heard about some of your more difficult things that you've been through. So if you've been that vulnerable with anybody, which is completely natural as you're becoming friends or in a romantic relationship, or or even just getting to know a colleague really well as you guys have worked together, a long time. It's inevitable you're going to talk about each other's families and and difficult experiences you had, and you're going to experience some of those things together, as a matter of fact, and and then that will bond you further, right? So if you have that with a lot of people, which I know you do, those are people. Who the hell is going to be like, what do you ask me for help for? What's wrong with you? Like, who the fuck is going to do that? No one's doing that. No one that you would ask for help is going to do that, unless you're completely self-aware and you hang out with a bunch of douchebags, which I don't think most people do.
No.
So like when you break it down like that, it's like, what the fuck? Like, why does anybody have any problems asking for help?
When you break it down like that, we all should be able to do it, and it's ridiculous. But
I get it. But the more that we, break it down like that and make it silly, then maybe the more people are like, yeah, I should just ask. It's not a really big thing. No, it's not. It's not. If you're struggling with something, ask. Even if you don't want to talk to somebody else, therapist, mental health hotline. There are people waiting to talk to you. If you're having an issue and you don't want to burden anybody else with it. And honestly, I don't care where you get the help as long as you get the proper help.
I can't imagine not having a therapist or someone to talk to. I'm telling you, like, people, if y'all ain't got a therapist, you need to get one or figure out someone to talk to, because everyone needs just your time just to talk about whatever you want to talk about, and that person listens. I'm telling you,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Everybody deserves that space and deserves the opportunity to do so. That's correct.
So how about this? Since it's, because we can kind of expand this conversation, since it's Mental Health Month, I I did post something recently about just being aware and mental, like, without your mental health, shit, you're screwed if you don't have it. So how about we go to that and things that can foster your mental health, because that is extremely, extremely important. Just being aware, and just knowing when you're not right, or when you, and I actually, what the point to the post was, people think that mental health is a whole big thing where you got to do all these whatever touchy feely things. And it basically is just having a conversation with yourself and being like, am I all right now? Or did this bother me? Does it, just being honest with yourself and saying, I like this, I didn't like that, that bothered me, that made me happy. And just like to know where you are, because it's very easy to just say that you're fine and just keep going and not acknowledge. And then you find out that you're not okay. So that's kind of that kind of is it. Like the focus on the mental health and just being able to check in with yourself. And then that's when if you need to ask for help or talk to someone else. But just kind of not being afraid to have regular conversations about yourself. And that was the biggest kind of hurdle with me. Like when I was a drinker, like, who the hell wants to sit there and think about think critically about yourself and what you're doing and how you like it's hard to do that. But
Yes.
once you become okay with yourself and knowing yourself and knowing your faults, knowing your, you know, your strengths, but to be able to sit there and have a serious conversation. And that for me, that is one of the most amazing things about uh cannabis and just the whole consumption thing, because it does allow you to just kind of see what is really there, because we all walk around with these emotions and we're annoyed or happy or whatever, and it may be for whatever reason, but to just sit there. And that's why I love my time when I just sit and consume, because it's like I can actually sit there and process the day. Okay, how am I doing? What's up with
Yep.
this and how are this? And I can think through things, and it allows me
That's
to stop. So that's kind of like, you know, I just wanted to touch on the ability to be able to sit down in a quiet room and listen to your own brain and not be freaked out. And when I was not my best self, I couldn't do that. It's easier to have a drink and just be like, nope, I don't even
sure.
want to think about it. Like, that's why when people compare smoking to drinking alcohol, it is like apples in, like, I don't know, dump trucks. I
It's very
mean,
different.
no, they're not
It
even the
is.
same thing. And for
No.
people to think that they are and one is asinine. But anyway, but just the ability, and that's something that in my consumption and that I have been like I can sit down and literally connect with myself and be like, okay, this is right, this is, and I can have those kind of you know, critical thought processes and conversations with myself without fear. So that's kind of being able to talk to yourself and being okay with who you are, accepting
Well,
yourself.
yes. I mean, that's another big theme of our show here, is trying to be self-aware, you know, really understanding yourself, and trying to the benefits of it are endless if you can continue to get yourself into a place where you can look at what you're doing critically, admit when you're wrong, process things appropriately, you know, talk, ask for help if needed, right? You know, all those good things. um, but the more that you know about yourself, the more you can grow, and the more that you can understand sort of your place in the world, and how to navigate all this craziness, in a way that will hopefully, you know, be a positive thing for you, you know, to grow. The more that you understand who you are, you know where you shouldn't go, what you shouldn't
Right.
do, how you shouldn't be, how you shouldn't act, right? Not that other people can't act those ways or be some of those ways, they're just not right for you, right? So you don't do them. And you should be comfortable. So
And with that understanding, you know, and I have found that then there are times that you may need to revisit conversations, because when you have an idea, I'll give you an example. This was really early on in the pandemic. Um, and my kids had been out of school for like a week or something, and they were emotional. And my thinking at the time, like, I'm like, oh, what's the big deal? Like, if I was in high school, I would have loved to have no school and blah, 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 and whatever. And literally, and this is the first time I really got that clarity. So what I was like, I went and I smoked and I went to take a shower, and it hit me, and it was like, what the like, what is wrong with you? Like, the kids left school. It is scary. Like, they left their lockers on a Friday the 13th, I believe.
mhm.
um and and they don't know what's going on. And I literally like pulled the kids together, and I'm like, I'm sorry, like I understand that this is scary, and but just to have that clarity of the plan, but also like a conversation with myself. And it's like, what's wrong with you? Like, they're scared. Like, this is a really unnerving time. Like, it's just get, you know, and I
Right,
had to kind of pull them together and say, I'm sorry. Like, how can I expect you to deal with things the way that I would deal with them? I'm
right,
a man, and you're,
yep,
you know, from,
right,
but it was that kind of the clarity, but it was also just sitting down and having, you know, thinking to myself. And it's like, no, you're wrong. Like, you're wrong. Like, you don't, and I wasn't like annoyed with them, but I was just kind of like annoyed in my, like, why are they like so much? And it was
you're
like,
just
no,
reminding yourself, like, you know, bigger picture. If you have a good relationship with
what's wrong with
yourself,
you?
then
Perspective.
those are things that you're able to sort of snap and process quickly,
Mhm.
and make, you know, more appropriate decisions, to your
Yeah.
point, you know.
Yeah.
And ultimately a lot of things have conspired to make it so that we, like, a lot of generations, especially above us, that are older than us were taught that it was weird to talk to yourself. They were taught
Yeah.
it was, that's what crazy people do, right? Meanwhile, they're told to, pray to a, you know, God, I guess. But ultimately, and then what's meditation, right? Like again, things start chipping away at this, I guess. But there's things
Hmm.
that conspired. Like I think hyper masculinity probably plays a role in this, in terms of like, don't be like they would just push that agenda further. Yeah, don't talk to yourself. You don't need anybody, blah blah blah. Right? You don't need to do that tricky blah blah, blah stuff, right? Like this is vein
Touchy
of
feely.
idiocy that runs through like mainly dudes, to be honest, that is ridiculous. And I don't see that as much in younger men that I deal with. I do still see it a little bit in older guys I deal with.
Hmm.
But I'd say as a whole, I think that's been chipped away at too over our 40, 50 years on the earth. And so, you know, but it's really about like destigmatizing the
Hmm.
idea that like, I mean, that's what mental health awareness is, right?
Right.
Like you said it at its, I mean, fundamentally, there's people who are experts who be like, and I'm like, no, it's just at its core, it's about understanding yourself as best you can. If you can't, or if there's things that you can't deal with, it's okay to ask for help. There's
Hmm.
professionals who are very, very well equipped to help you. That can be great, whether it's a therapist or all other sorts of mental health professionals too, depending on your issue or what you have going on. There's zero reason for you not to look into those things if you are having some of those issues, and if you have a good relationship with yourself and you're able to speak to yourself in the way that Aaron's talking about, and that you can make critical decisions about what you're doing and really admit what you've done wrong or better yourself and really look in the mirror and do the hard looks, you know what I mean? If you can do that, you have a better chance of sort of, I would say, continuing to be healthy mentally as you move forward. This is not to say that even people who are super dialed in and stuff don't need help. Things can happen for a multitude of reasons that can throw you for a loop. There's all sorts of things that can happen to us personally. There's conditions. There's all sorts of stuff that can take place in our lives or within our bodies that will compel us to need help, no matter how dialed in we are or aware or awake we are to all this stuff. So again, there's no shame in any of it. The worst, I would say the biggest shame is if you're basically the only thing preventing you from growing is you not saying
Hmm.
anything. That's the
Hmm.
shame. So don't do that. Right. Recognize when you're, needing some help or when there's an issue, or just give yourself regular things within your daily routine or weekly, monthly routine, right? To make sure that you're in check.
Mm.
Right? Therapist, maybe some meditation exercises, breathing or something, or you want to make sure you're staying healthy when you go on walks. It really does good things for you spiritually and mentally. Cannabis, a good regiment of that, right? Whatever the appropriate dosing and
Mhm.
delivery form, etc., is for you, right? Those are all, I think, things that people can do at a regular clip that'll give you a good chance to be able to handle those inevitable, tough times that will occur no matter what to every
Yeah,
single
yeah,
one of us. And that's
and
really
they,
the
yeah.
thing. You will never avoid it. You will have hard, bad times. I'm sorry. They will happen to
I
every
think
single one.
I think we need to say that
Every person.
again because we expect that things are going to be smooth sailing. Now that's one thing. That's one thing that I don't get thrown for a loop when crazy things happen because I fully understand like shit's going to happen.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I say to my kids. I said, the sooner that you understand that shit is going to happen, the better. Because once you understand that, then you don't get all worked up when shit happens. You're like,
Right.
okay, I was expecting it. And then you pivot as opposed to going, oh, this is so unfair. You throw your hands up. Why does this have to happen to me? No. Because once you do all that performative bullshit, you're right back where you were. And you
That's
got
right.
to deal with the problem.
That's
And
right.
actually, and it's funny, and that's something that I learned with sobriety because I used to like, oh, what's the reaction to like something happened? Oh, I'm gonna have a drink to react. Okay, and then you still have the problem to deal with. Stupid.
Yep. Yep.
What did that do? Now you're actually further behind because now you got to get sober and so
Yep.
yeah, yeah,
It's again, it's like it is really hard. It is.
it
It's
is.
hard. Um, it's not like the reason I talk about it like it's easy is because I hope to compel you to try harder because it is difficult
Hmm.
and you'll fail. a bunch of times, and it's not as if like even today at 48 that I am somehow perfect. In fact, if anything, I recognize that it's quite the opposite. And the more I learn, I don't know a damn thing really. I know more things about the things I care to know about, which makes me valuable, I suppose. But ultimately, about life, yeah, very interesting. I mean, I feel like I'm more self-aware, of course, and I continue to grow in that way. But you then also understand that there's such a wide variety of ideas, opinions, people, thoughts, all these different things. And I've always tried to see the similarities, and so I draw from that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then evaluate the differences, right? Are they there because of like, are they, man-made? Are they purposely done? Is it natural for these things to conflict? Because there's that too. But anyhow, it's thinking about things I think in those manners, right? And then it's easy to do that like from a strategy point, from like, oh, let's analyze a business or some political strategy about how they're doing this or the other thing, or what other people are doing is really easy to get into and to pick apart, and to see about. But then when you have to turn that on yourself, and we're all good at doing that about all those other things, aren't we? We're all really great at like offering our 2 cents and and giving it like a little bit of thought here, or oh man, they shouldn't do that. Like, why does like reality TV exist? Or why do we pose all these questions on social? Or why are we talking about Kendrick and Drake so much, right? And we were all, oh, I wouldn't have done it this way, or I'd go this way, or oh, he went really hard here, not hard enough here, and that sort of stuff. We love that, right? We're analyzing it for sports, for entertainment, for everything, but we damn sure don't want to do it right here.
I literally was going to say it's easier to do that and look at other people critically than
Of course.
look at yourself.
Of course.
But expanding on that, because it is that way and it shouldn't be that way. But here's the thing, like,
well, I would pose the more that you can make it not that way, at least for yourself, or for your little kind of community of folks around you, or maybe have that sort of influence on them. Those are good things. More people who are more self-empowered, more aware. Doesn't mean you don't like Bravo any less or whatever. Just means you understand yourself more. You're like, yeah, I get why I like this. Doesn't mean you shouldn't even chip away at it and be comment on it and do all the cool things and get into the sort of fun of it, because that's like the culture of that, right? But if you're aware of that, that's better than being sort of like, compelled for whatever reason you don't understand.
I think there's one important component that kind of would help with, a lot of the just kind of, I don't know if it's self-critical, but just being okay with, here's the thing. And I like, we need to be okay with who we are. Obviously, like, we have our faults, we have our strengths, but I think we run into problems when we sit there and look at other people. And this is one thing, like I've always told my kid, don't sit there and look at other people because you want to like that. No, you need to. I can't
remember who said it, but comparison is the thief of joy. Could not be more true.
Yeah.
Is it important to know what others are doing? Certainly from a professional perspective, it is. Of course, right? Market research is a thing, understand who's doing what. Best practices are important to implement into your organization and into your strategy overall, of course, right? But don't be victim to them, and do not hold yourself to their metrics. Hold yourself to your own, right? Yes, use what they're doing to learn and to maybe even implement for yourself if it resonates. If everybody else that does what you're doing does it, odds are you maybe should do it too. Or maybe that's where you want to differentiate. But either way, be aware enough of what you're doing, and don't be spending too much time looking at everybody else. Plus, if you're not them, and this is what drives me nuts about some people on social media, is like, yo, you don't have 150,000 followers, so don't act like you do, or don't hold yourself to those standards. Grow to that. Hold yourself to the same standard as somebody who has 1,500 or wherever you're at, and then try. And yes, take from those people, because if that's where you want to go, of course, take elements of what they do, strategy, right? Things they do that's favorable to the algorithm, for instance, or ways that they get more engagement, right? Of course, yes. Do those things and modify them to your own style, brand, etc. There's where the magic is. But to like hold yourself accountable to what they're doing is ludicrous.
But it works in life just as much as it does in business, because we often try to hold ourselves to other people's metrics, metrics.
That's
and we
correct.
have a completely different circumstance. We have a completely different
Right.
background, and
Right.
that's kind of was the overall
You have a
point.
whole different project than they do. It's not
Yeah,
structured the same. You don't
right,
have the same benchmarks. You don't have the same calls to action. You don't have the same priorities. You don't have the same, team. You don't have nothing the same. So why are you comparing all of your stuff to someone else or something else? Right? Learn from them, yes. Right? Even be mentored. Even ask for help from other people. But don't compare yourself to them to the ultimate degree because you're not them. They're not you.
right, right. Well, and yeah, so just be you, whether it's business, whether it's personal,
Yep.
whatever. Don't try to be,
And there's your
because you're
final
going to fail,
CTA.
be someone
Be
else.
yourself.
Be
Yes,
yourself.
it's ask for help if it's needed.
Let
Let
people
people
know
know
what's
what's
going
going on
on.
and be
Be okay
yourself.
having a conversation with yourself.
That's right. Be
Accept
yourself and
yourself.
be okay with yourself. That's right.
But it's all kind of the same thing.
It is.
Be secure in who you are. Don't try to skate your lane. Don't try to be someone else. Don't try to skate their lane. Skate your lane, because you
That's right.
have a completely different set of everything.
That's right. Everything.
Take stuff that works. That's great. Great. But when you beat yourself up trying to be
Right.
that person or a carbon copy, you're done, because you're
Yes.
just a second rate them. You're not you. You're a
Yes.
second rate them.
That's
They've
right.
already done it.
It's like a common, as you know, I'm a stupid pro wrestling nerd. A big common trope there is to say, like, I'm not the next coming of so and so. I'm the first coming of blah, right? Because that's a cocky thing to say. That's awesome, but it's also true. Nobody wants to be the second version of blah. You want to be
No.
the number one thing that you are.
Mhm.
And maybe you're compared to those things because you drew from them, or there's some
Right.
obvious comparisons that people who analyze such things would make. Fine, lean into that maybe, or if it bothers you, differentiate further, right? Take the data, make decisions, be willing to change, be agile, right? That's another thing that could be a whole show there, but ultimately that's another issue that plagues a lot of this is people's
Mhm.
unwillingness to change or to be open to it or to even understand that it's never ending and ongoing all the time, every second of every moment that you ever live. And I think that makes people very uncomfortable. And of course, as we very much know, people are taught sort of in ways to believe that's not the case when it actually
Mhm.
is. And or they convince themselves because they don't want to, they don't want to change, right? Which is also a choice, right? You're changing, right? Because you're staying put. That's a choice. You're changing perhaps how people look at you because you're making a stand now, or you're not
Mhm.
going where they're going, right? So again, um, I think a lot of people who want things to be different or want things to slow down don't
Mhm.
realize that that's a form of change too. So
Ooh.
um, something to kind of pontificate on. Maybe change could be a theme of our next show. Um,
The
anyhow,
old
so
might change.
yes, but it's been a good one. If you want to hook up with, connect with us, you can, of course, comment on these shows where you see them. You can hit up Aaron or myself, Aaron Washington, or myself, Brian Holler, on LinkedIn.
That was a quick
And
hour.
elsewhere, there's other avenues. You can hit us up on IG. What's your handle on IG again?
Oh, I don't know. Kanye Premium, and personal is Aaron Washington, 1973, baby.
There you go. Mine's Holler 1012, Holler 1012. If you want to meet me on Instagram, I'm there doing things occasionally too. Although I believe I'm fairly shadow banned, so you might have a hard time finding me
Kind of feel like
because
I am too.
you know Meta not always the most favorable to pro cannabis people, as we all well know.
I
Anyhow,
feel like I feel like I am too, but I post lots of weed pictures and blowing smoke and joints and everything else. So I'm like,
right.
man, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I'm pretty sure the whole industry is, and we just don't realize it because mostly we're talking to ourselves, unfortunately. So
That's a good point.
what we've got to do is chip away at figuring out other ways to bring more new eyeballs to this. Thankfully, there's a lot of word of mouth, and that can always be found. Thankfully, because everybody's profiles haven't been shut down or anything. But we'll keep fighting the good fight, right? So let's do it.
That's right. Because we're just trying to help people one person at a time, whether it's
Boom.
ourselves, because we're preaching to them, and I'll take my own advice. Ask for
Nice.
help, everybody. Ask for help.
That's right. That's right. And know what's going on, and be willing to talk to people about what's going on, and be yourself, and try to be as authentic as you possibly can be to the situation. And yeah, love you. Do well.
My last my last point is just literally just accept yourself, man. Just
Yeah.
accept yourself, love yourself, be happy with the person that you are. Nobody
Right.
else, you. So
That's
love
right.
you all as well. Love you,
All
brother.
right. All right. Love you too, brother, and love all you. We'll see you next week. Have a great one. We're out. We're out.